Hey, what's going on, guys? It's John back with another video, and today we're going to be starting a new series on improv. And in today's first video on that series, we're going to talk about chord groupings. All right, so let's jump right into it. So when we're talking about improvisation, we are talking about being able to come up with different interesting things on the fly without having it written down in front of you, without having practiced it. It's just something that just kind of flies off of the cuff. If you've ever been in theater and you guys have a moment where you need to improv something, they literally just give you an idea, they give you an outline, and they say, go for it. There's no lines, there's nothing for you to read, there's nothing for you to practice. Based on the information they've given you, you just have to come up with something. And so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about improv, okay? And one of the first things that you really want to understand about improv, especially if you're not really fluent with playing with different melodies, modes, scales, and all that stuff, doing all this kind of stuff, doing all that stuff, really a good place for you to start is chords, right? Because we already know chords. We know basic, major, and minor chords. And if some of you are more advanced, you know some of your diminished chords, you know some seventh chords, and maybe you might even know some of the other ones like your sus4, your sus2, your add 9 chords. So all of those different things are a better place for us to start because it doesn't require any technical skill. Maybe like if you're trying to solo and do all this crazy stuff, just playing chords is a great place for you to start with improv. Okay. And so I'm going to take a chord progression in the key of C. We're going to be on the 2, 5, 1 to the 6. Two, 5, 1 to 6. All right. Now I'm going to play that in root position so that way you guys don't get too confused with some of the chords that I'm doing. But essentially, if I just did the triads, it would be a 2, okay, 5, 1. Okay. Now I'm going to play seventh chords. I wanted you guys to see that in triad form so you could see how the chords are moving around without getting too confused. But I'm going to be using seventh chords in this example. And what I'm going to show you guys is chord grouping. So what is chord grouping? So essentially, if you can group two chords together or if they sound good together over the same note, that's essentially what I'm talking about when I'm talking about chord groupings, right? So my first chord is a 2 chord, right? So what chord also works good over this note? Now, this comes with trial and error. It comes with you hearing different music, learning different music, and all of these things just kind of come to you. But I happen to know that an E minor also sounds good over a D, right? And moving back and forth between those chords. Now I'm kind of I'm not cheating, but essentially what I'm doing over here is playing an F major 7 in my right hand, going down to an E major 7 or E minor 7, right? So F major 7 to E minor 7. Now with this F major 7, if I put a D in the bass, it becomes a D minor 9 chord, right? I can play the whole thing with just one hand, but you're going to see why I'm playing it with 2 separate hands. Okay. So I know that on this D chord, I can also use this E minor chord, which is great. All right. When I go to my 5 chord, it's literally just an F major chord with a G in the bass. And if you guys watch my dominant, my video on dominant chords, that sus5 chord, that's what this is. It's a 4 major 7 over a 5. And I also know that E minor also works good over this. That sounds really nice. I can also use the D minor here. Oh man, I'm getting too into it. So that works, right? When I go to my 1, I have basically an E minor 7 in my right hand, and the C on the bass makes it a C major 9. I know that this D minor works. This F major works. Okay. And again, when I'm going through all of this, it may sound like I'm kind of talking around in circles, but ultimately all I'm doing is just trying to listen and hear what chords sound good over this note. And what I'm going to do is group those chords together. Those chords have now become a group. So now when I go to my C major chord, I know I have 3 other chords that I can use over that note because those I have grouped together and they sound good together. Okay, that's what I want you guys to understand. And when we go to our 6, I can use an F major 7 with that. I can use an E minor 7. And I can use a D minor 7. So for the most part, the chords that I'm grouping together have been F major 7, E minor 7, and D minor 7, right? And so that chord progression, that 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, okay? I'm now going to play you a version of that utilizing those grouped chords, right? And remember, we're talking about improving. So there's going to be some groove to it. There's going to be some movement to it. But what I want you guys to understand is when I'm on a particular note, I'm not just playing one chord. I'm playing different chords. All right. And those chords that I have grouped together work well together over that note. So let's hit it. Okay, so as you can see, as I was moving through, right? I'm playing a bunch of different groupings of chords over one single note, right? And even though some of them are the same, that's a part of what improvisation is, right? You don't want to just completely be random each time. You want to create a groove. You want to create a foundation so that people can understand what it is that you're going for. If you're changing up all of the chords at every single bar, every single measure, then there's not an idea that people can lock onto. One word that I want you guys to learn is the word motif. And the word motif means idea, all right? That's where Yamaha Motif, the keyboard series, that's where it gets that word from. It means to inspire an idea, right? And so when you're improvising, it's not just about how fast you can play, how many chords you can throw in, or how fancy you can be. It's literally about coming up with an idea that resonates with other people, okay? And when I was stuck on that 5 chord, when I was showing you guys this, and just kind of just sitting here with these chords, it really brought me back to a time. It pulls an emotion from me. The first thing that I think about when I play these chords is The Wiz, the one that had Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, those guys in it. That's what this kind of reminds me of. And moving that bass line, I'm still technically on the 5, but I'm improvising by moving my bass line, right? The main chord that I'm playing is I'm still stuck on the 5. And some of you may be wondering, well, how are you still on the 5 when you move down here and you're moving up? Well, I'm improvising that sound. The main sound that you're still hearing is this. That's the sound that you're hearing. But in between hearing this sound, what you're hearing is this. But this is the sound. Okay? When you're thinking about chords, you're not thinking about the chord itself. You're thinking about its function. What is it doing for you, right? And this is why chord groupings work so great, because it's not particularly about the different chords that I'm using over a single note. It's about the function of those chords. How do they make me feel? What is the function of that chord. When I'm on my 2, right? I didn't choose this just because it was easy and it was the same chord. I chose it because it's keeping the same feel of the first chord I was on. And when I wanted to move the chord, I still wanted to keep that same feel, right? I didn't want to change it up too much. So the function of my 5 chord isn't to change to a new chord. It's literally to give me a different flavor of what I was playing before. Okay. And now, so when I move to my C chord, the function of this chord is to kind of be like a place of rest. But because I still want to keep that motif, that idea going, while I change the chord, I keep the rhythm, right? Right? And it changes ever so slightly. I know that this is a little bit more resolved than what I was playing before. But I'm keeping the same rhythm because that motif, it's gluing everything together. And then when I go to my 6th chord, okay, again, same rhythm, but I'm changing the chords up a little bit. And the function of this chord, the function of my 6th chord, isn't to be restful. It's to move me back to somewhere else. So I want a lot of dissonance on my 6th chord. Right? If you just sat there and played this, that doesn't sound restful at all. The function of it isn't to be restful. The function of it is to give me some dissonance so I can move back to somewhere that's more comfortable, like my 2 chord. Right? And so if you listen to it again, right? Listen to them as their function, not as just chords, okay? And that's one of the first things that you really want to understand and grasp when you're talking about improvising, is that it's not about how many chords you can play. It's not about what chords you play. It's about what's the emotion that you want to convey. What's the function of those chords, right? Because the function of those chords can change. If I'm playing a 2-5-1, the function of this chord just changed, right? This is really, really dissonant, right? It was dissonant before, but now it's even more so. So even though the function of it is to be a dissonant chord that moves me somewhere, now I've introduced a different flavor of dissonance, right? So that's the function. I didn't just choose this chord just because I chose this chord. I chose this chord because I wanted that punch, that sound, right? Right? And again, I didn't just choose this chord because it's a fun chord. I chose it because it introduces change. It introduces a different emotion. And that, man. And that just took me to a different key. I mean, just improvising on the fly. I mean, I just took a 2-5-1 in the key of C, 2-5-1, 6, and then I turned that 2 into a major chord, and then I love that sound. Then I went to a minor 1, and then I did a dominant 13 sus chord here to take me to the key of B flat. So I started off in the key of C and moved all the way over to the key of B flat, not thinking about what chords I'm playing. I don't care about the chords. That's not the point. The point is that I was thinking of function. So when you're thinking about improvising, think function over chord. You don't want to think about the biggest, best chord that you can play. You want to think about the function of that chord first, right? And this is why it's so important that I tell you guys, you need to learn your basic major and minor chords. You need to learn your other basic triads like your sus4, your sus2, your add9, your add6. You want to learn your extended chord. You want to learn your seventh chords, because once you lock these chords in, they become a part of your vocabulary. This isn't something that it's going to take you too terribly long to understand. You're not going to always have to do the math in your head to figure out how to play these chords. These chords are just eventually going to become a part of your vocabulary. And when you can get to the point where you can call upon those chords because you know what sound you want and you want to implement that sound, then it's going to free you up. Because I can guarantee you that several years ago, I would not have played a D major 7 chord when I'm in the key of C, right? Because when you're not thinking about the chord and you're thinking about the function, theory goes out the window. Because at this point, it's like, oh, I don't care about being politically correct about my music. I just care about introducing a new sound. And that's what gives you intrigue when you improvise. That's what makes people have a stank face when you're playing, when you toss those things in there. So I'm going to do that one more time just so you guys can fully hear what that sounds like. So again, we're in the key of C doing a 2-5-1-6, and we're going to immediately switch over into the key of B flat. And the chords that we use to get there, I could care less what the chords are because they sound good, right? It's not so much about breaking down, okay, well, how did I get there? No, the chords just sound good. And I'm using the same bass notes. I'm just changing the chords, right? So let's try it again. To the 5, we're still in C. To the 1. To the 6. Now I'm doing a major. Minor, doing a dominant 13 to my B flat, right? And then I can change that, right? Those are different things that you can do. And the only reason why I knew how to do that was just because I just understood where my starting chord is, and I know where I can go. I know where I can go with those different chords. So that's why it's important for you to lock in, understand your chords, get them into your vocabulary, because no matter what chord you're on, you'll always be able to go somewhere with it. All right. And that's a lot simpler than trying to figure out how to do all these crazy lead lines and moving your fingers really, really fast to really try to impress people. Sometimes coming up with a great chord progression that provides intrigue and is interesting is going to take you a long way when it comes to improvising. And later on down the road, when you get your technique up, then you'll be able to implement some of those other cool tricks that really, really rile the crowd. So that's it for today's video. I hope that you guys got something from it. I had a lot of fun with it. I was really surprised with some of the things I was able to push out there. All of these things I don't think about. You know, these are things that just automatically come out as you play. So the more time that you spend playing, the more of these magic moments that you'll find that you'll have with yourself, and you'll just be sitting in a room laughing at yourself about how good you sound. I've spent many a night doing that. And so if this video was helpful for you guys, let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know if I explain everything well, or if you need me to have another crack at this video to maybe explain it in a different way for you. Be sure to like and share this video. And that's it. I want you guys to get in the shed, get practicing on your chords, and I want you guys to make some great music. You guys stay blessed. Get to work.